Hello, good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Minds on Guard, where we're learning how to guard our minds against all of the manipulations, attacks, and attempts at thought and behavior control that we come under today in the 21st century. Tonight, we're going to pick back up where we left off in a discussion on Psyops. What they are, how they happen, how they work, and what we can do to keep our minds on guard in today's world, where it seems like every day brings a new and unprecedented layer of an ever-evolving psyop. This truly is a strange and concerning time to be alive. Now, I know that most who are watching this channel are aware at some level to the degree that we are being manipulated every day. I personally have been quite shocked by some of the recent developments and deepening efforts to gaslight, deceive, and misdirect people into further mass delusion. The speed and intensity of things is really ramping up fast, and I hold the opinion that it's only going to get worse in the coming months and years. Who knows, maybe days and weeks at this point. I hope the efforts that we're making here at Minds on Guard do prove fruitful in helping, at some small level, some people to maintain their sense of clarity and a grasp on the truth of what we're going through together. Since things are becoming so crazy, it's more important now than ever to gain an understanding of the concept of Psyops so that we can be on the lookout and not fall into the traps that are being set. I've often said that we're in a fight when it comes to maintaining objective truth. And when it comes to Psyops, the battlefield is located in the minds of those who are being targeted. While real events play out in the world, every new layer to the manipulative narrative that is being crafted and shaped is designed to engender thoughts and points of view which push and pull people in all sorts of directions. In the most extreme cases, radicalization occurs and people become truly dangerous. Things move beyond the mental arena into the physical, and very quickly. What's even more crazy is that these kinds of physical outbursts of energy, whether they be in the form of massive protests, riots, or individual acts of violence and terrorism, are actually another layer of the greater psyop themselves. When people act out based solely on what they have been programmed to think by entities who seek to control and direct our behavior such that our actions serve their aims, we become a part of the operation and have given up our ownership of our own minds and bodies, often without ever realizing what has happened. It's up to each and every individual to resist the attacks and the appeals to emotion and fear so we can expose the evil that we're facing every day. We can shed the light of truth on things. We have to. That's the only way to fight back and take control and maintain our freedom from tyranny. I'm not taking a political stance here. These things exist wherever the wills of humans set up shop and work against the will of the Most High God. Wherever that is happening, tyrants will move in and seek dominance over anyone they can. You may even be doing it to yourself and those around you. We're all capable of this kind of evil, and we must not give up the effort of staying on guard to defend our minds from choosing that path. Last week, we began defining our terms within the concept of Psyops, starting with narrative. We arrived at two definitions which are key to understanding this concept. The first is that narratives are some story or account of something that has occurred. The second is that narratives are a way of presenting or understanding a situation or series of events that reflects and promotes a particular point of view or set of values. This second definition is how narrative is understood best when it comes to the ways that psyops work on people. They are highly sophisticated and layered methods of controlling and directing people toward a specific point of view and as such, they seek to establish meaning that is in line with the predetermined point of view that is being furthered. This is accomplished by targeting the various layers of people's perception of their identity. The things that people feel are what make them who they are. When it comes to controlling people's values and points of view, their perceived identity is where the most influence is able to be exerted. The more layers of a person's identity can be triggered, the more control and power over that person is able to be gained. It is this reason that we need to be solid in where the source of our identities actually lies, and whether or not those sources are trustworthy. I left last week by stating that our truest, most stable identity as human beings is found in our imaging status, as humans created in the image of God. Without that as our foundation, or if we are in any way weak in holding on to that truth, we are liable to wind up placing too much stock in any number of stories designed to engender a less stable and therefore malleable identity. That provides just the kind of mind that those who seek power and control through psychological warfare love to prey on for their own ends. The best example of this kind of deception is found right in the opening chapters of the book of Genesis, when the serpent manipulated Eve to go against the will of God and eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The serpent crafted a different point of view, and through reworking the meaning of language was able to con Adam and Eve into behaving in a way that would become known as the fall of humanity. The serpent made up a different story and used that to work toward its own aims. This gets to the nexus point of where the two definitions of narrative that I mentioned before act in tandem to produce chaos and confusion at massive levels. Narrative is best understood in the concept of Psyops as a point of view or set of values. But what often tends to happen when people consider narrative is that the two definitions get conflated with one another. Where we should be concerning ourselves with what point of view is being delivered, we mistake the deeper levels for the story that we're being told. That may sound strange, but it's a very important distinction that we miss at our own peril. When it comes to Psyops, stories are what create and deliver the narrative. They are distinct from one another. Where stories are the means of delivery of the information which crafts the narrative itself is where the intended meaning is held. In short, a story is a message which refers to a narrative. What this means is that stories are the externalization of what would otherwise be an internalized understanding of any kind of identity, whether it be individual, group, national, or whatever. So what can we understand from this? Well, for starters, it opens up the potential for a truly monumental amount of crafting perception in order to articulate a desired point of view. If stories are what craft narratives, and stories are crafted using symbols and language, then there's no limit to what could be created in order to communicate a particular point of view. Our movies, books, TV shows, and all other forms of entertainment and communication are mechanisms of delivering some form of narrative. This is where we see the statement, "We're living in a psyop," come into its clearest focus. I don't mean for that to sound scary, but at the most basic level, our ability to reference any kind of meaning such that we're able to think and perceive reality is inherent to our existence. Without this ability, we would not be able to survive. What becomes the real challenge, especially today, is to parse out the information that we're receiving all the time as accurately as we possibly can, so that we're able to arrive at meanings which are in line with how the author of reality itself has established since the beginning of creation. No small task, to be sure, but we do much of this without even recognizing it to be the case or happening at all. Why I bring it up now is that the depth to which stories are able to act on our thinking and behavior must not be underestimated or dismissed. The controllers of the information that we're bombarded with in the news and mainstream media understand this very well. We can see a small example of how subtle changes in the symbols and language being used to tell a story actually create a distinctly different and even opposing point of view just by reading headlines promoted on various news publications. The same event, in reality, may be discussed with the slightest shifts in the meat of the language which act on the deep-level psychology of the readers and drive them further into the narrative that is both desired by the crafters and then sought by the people who gain their sense of self through the stories they're told. In the context of narrative warfare, the overarching goal of the ones who craft various narratives is to draw the most amount of people towards accepting or rejecting a desired narrative and then act out of that choice. As we've been discussing, this is done through the use of stories. In order to do this effectively, the job of the narrative crafters is to push forward the kinds of stories which engender both harmony and dissonance in any individual or group. Harmony in the sense that the stories have triggered the layers of identity which agree with the underlying meaning being communicated, and then dissonance in the sense that there is a triggering of rejection at the various levels of identity. When a story can do both, it is highly effective toward achieving the goal of thought and behavior control. Stories do not need to achieve both harmony and dissonance, but you can be sure that they are aimed at one or the other, especially in today's media landscape, which is the major force of control used by the entities who seek to dominate reality. The point that I wish to make here is that if we're going to maintain an honest search for truth when engaging with the media, whether that be the kinds of entertainment we enjoy, whatever platforms or sources that we use for news and information on current events, or the various social media spaces, we need to make certain that we are contextualizing ourselves as accurately as possible. I made a video on this a while back, and it's so important to check ourselves in this matter. If we do not contextualize our own inner narrative with accuracy, then we have no hope of doing so when it comes to the narratives that were fed by the media. We need to ask ourselves, what stories am I making up about who I think I am? How do I understand myself in relation to the way others understand me? Am I dismissing the facts about the way I think and behave, which demonstrate things about myself that when I look at them honestly, make me angry, afraid, or disgusted with what I'm seeing? Questions like this are necessary for anyone who hopes to live a healthy and stable life in service to truth. If we can't be honest about the answers when it comes to our own stories, we're doomed to blindly follow any number of stories which play to our more delusional, narcissistic, and selfish desires. The media today is running a non-stop psyop, which is aimed squarely at the darkest parts of everyone's inner narrative. We have to make sure that we're seeing things clearly, or we're in deep trouble. So until next time, I pray that you all stay safe, stay diligent, and stay vigilant, keeping your minds on guard.